The scene opens with a truck driver rolling up to a checkpoint, getting waved through by security without a hitch. He drives into a quiet yard, signaling his partner to grab a wrench. The driver unlocks a wooden crate and out steps Chris. But before Chris can even stretch his legs, the driver demands more money. Chris insists he's already paid, yet greed takes over, and the driver comes at him with a machete. Chris reacts fast. Chris dodges, kicks like a pro, taking down both the driver and his partner with effortless precision. After the scuffle, he grabs his bag, snatches the truck keys, and speeds off into the night. Later, Chris is seen tailing a sleek black sedan through the city. The car stops at a school, and a young girl named Elisa steps out. That evening, she returns home, greeted warmly by her father, Vicente, who seems like a loving parent on the surface, and then casually takes a phone call, his tone calm and friendly. Everything looks normal, at least for now. Meanwhile, at a quiet cafe, a man named El Corvo refuses to leave even after closing time. The manager, Alex, politely asks him to go, but he becomes unsettling, displaying a metal prosthetic hand that doubles as a hidden blade, even slicing a piece of cake as he threatens her subtly. Before things escalate further, a female police officer intervenes, forcing him to leave. But once Alex and the officer get into a car, El Corvo reappears from the shadows, attacking with... He kills the officer and assures Alex he'll get her home, his tone both chilling and oddly calm. The next morning, Elisa is on her way to school with her security team. At a stoplight, a man begins wiping the windshield. The guards tell him to back off, but he refuses, his actions growing more aggressive by the second. Suddenly, he smashes the mirrors and attacks, knocking one guard out cold. The driver tries to lock the doors, but it's useless. The man drags him out, and Elisa seizes the chance to run into the woods. The attacker follows, overpowering the guards one by one, before capturing her and locking her in the car's trunk. When word reaches Vicente, he's furious. In a violent rage, he takes out his anger on his own men, blaming them for the abduction. His wrath turns deadly. He brutally beats one guard with a bat, then orders his others to attack the remaining survivor. Enraged and desperate, Vicente calls in every man he has to find his daughter. Meanwhile, Chris opens the trunk to check on Elisa. She doesn't hesitate, grabbing a wrench and striking him before making another run for it. He catches up, trying to calm her down, explaining that he's not her enemy. She doesn't believe him and keeps her distance, weapon in hand. Chris then carefully shows her a photograph, a picture of her mother, her father, and himself standing together. The sight stops her cold. Realizing he knew her family, she lowers her guard slightly as Chris explains everything. He was a close friend of her mother's, and before she passed, she made him promise to protect Elisa if anything ever happened. He admits that snatching her away wasn't the ideal way to do it, but he had no choice. The city was too dangerous, and her father wasn't the man she thought he was. With quiet urgency, he tells her it's time to go. They still have a long road ahead, and this is only the beginning of their escape. The girl refuses to go anywhere with the stranger, clutching her weapon like her life depends on it. Fed up, Chris sighs, pulls out his own gun, flicks the safety on, and tosses it to her, telling her to keep it if it helps her feel safe. She hesitates, picks it up, but still doesn't trust him. When he pushes her to make a choice, she fires. A clean miss, barely an inch from his head. Back on the road, she keeps the gun aimed at him, demanding to go home. Chris calmly tells her she's not going to pull the trigger, but she keeps testing him. After boasting about the weapons training her father made her do, she fires again. This time, nothing happens. The gun's loaded with blanks. Furious, she realizes he tricked her, while Chris just stares in disbelief that she actually tried to shoot him. When the car runs out of gas, Chris stops at a small station, telling her to stay put while he refuels. But as he pumps gas, she spots a group of men playing nearby and takes off, screaming for help. He runs after her, but the men block his path while she grabs a phone and calls for help. Chris insists she doesn't understand what's going on, but no one believes him. The first man to step forward gets dropped with a single punch. More men join in, and Chris moves fast, dodging hits, twisting arms, and taking them down one by one, still shouting that he doesn't want to hurt anyone. Meanwhile, Elisa's call finally connects to her father. She manages to say she's been kidnapped just before Chris catches up and drags her back to the car. In frustration, he ties her hands behind her back as she keeps kicking and yelling. Out of desperation, he finally blurts out the truth. He's her real father. She freezes in shock. When it sinks in, she starts arguing again, complaining she's hungry and exhausted. He softens, promising they'll stop to eat. As they drive away, another car quietly tails them from behind. Somewhere else, one of Vicente's men makes a call to a bald associate, saying the girl's been taken, and that this might be the perfect time to strike back. Later, Chris and Elisa sit at a roadside cafe, sharing a meal in tense silence. They argue playfully over how to pronounce her name before she finally asks where he's been all her life. Chris admits he spent the last 15 years in prison and can't help but notice how much she looks like her mother. The moment turns heavy when he reveals the truth. Her father, Vicente, was the one who killed her mother. Before Elisa can even react, a group of armed men burst into the cafe, guns aimed at Chris. Thinking quickly, he tells Elisa to warn them that their gun safety is still on. When one of the men checks, Chris lunges, slamming him into a table and taking down another with a kick. The fight turns chaotic as Chris overpowers his attackers. But in the confusion, Elisa is dragged outside by two others. They shoot out his tires before speeding away. Furious, Chris rushes after them but finds himself surrounded. He grabs the last man standing, demanding to know where they've taken the girl. The man curses at him, raising a fire extinguisher as a weapon, but Chris doesn't flinch. He's done playing games. Chris doesn't hold back. His fists crash into the enemy's face again and again until teeth scatter across the floor. Meanwhile, the men who've taken Elisa arrive at a private club and hand her over to an older man who immediately calls her father. Vicente is relieved to hear his daughter is safe, but Elisa is torn and demands the truth. She asks if what her abductor told her was real, if her mother really died at his hands. Vicente denies everything, but when she mentions that the man who took her claims to be her real father, Vicente freezes, his calm cracked. The old man drags Elisa deeper inside, while the intruder uses one of the guards as a shield, firing with deadly precision. The gang fights back, but they're no match. He moves like a machine, shooting, slamming, and throwing enemies across tables and walls. The old man runs out of bullets and charges in with his fists, using a brutal iron prosthetic to crush anyone in his path, but even that doesn't stop the storm. Elisa tries to escape, but is caught in the crossfire. The intruder spots her, throws a gun her way, knocking her out cold before continuing his rampage. He slices through attackers, beats them with his metal arm, and even drags a screaming woman across the bar like a rag doll. When Elisa wakes, she finds a gun and desperately fires, but her trembling hands make her shots useless. The bullets fly wide, and the intruder doesn't even flinch. She runs, but he's right behind her, breaking necks and leaving bodies everywhere. Just as he reaches the exit, thinking he's cleared the place, Chris bursts in. The intruder adjusts his glasses and squares up, ready for another fight. The moment he swings, Chris dodges fast, almost slamming him to the ground, until he realizes his opponent's got an iron fist. That split-second distraction costs him. The metal-armed fighter lands a spinning kick that sends Chris crashing through a table. Chris fights back with everything he's got, grabbing bottles, chairs, anything he can reach, but the intruder blocks each strike with ease. A punch from his metal arm nearly knocks Chris out cold. They exchange brutal blows, tearing through the club as furniture shatters around them. For every hit Chris lands, the intruder returns too, until finally, he slams Chris onto a table again. The fight's not over, but this time, Chris knows exactly what kind of monster he's dealing with. The metal-fisted brute regains control and slams his arm into Chris, sending him flying across the room. Blood spills from his mouth as he hits the floor hard. The intruder steps on him, tightening his iron hand for the final blow, until Elisa screams from above. That split second is enough for Chris to roll away and get back on his feet. Both crash down onto a car below. Barely conscious, Chris tells her to keep running, while the other man rises again, refusing to quit. Then chaos strikes. The old man bursts in with an AK-47, spraying bullets everywhere. When his ammo runs dry, the metal-armed killer calmly walks up and slits his throat. He and Chris lock eyes and go at it once more, trading blows until a car suddenly smashes through the wall, hitting the intruder head-on. Behind the wheel is Elisa. She jumps out and runs to Chris, and together they escape into the night. Once they're safe, Chris tells her to stop running and act normal. When she asks where he learned to fight, he just says he did what he had to do. As they travel, Elisa insists her father, Vicente, isn't the villain. Chris finally tells her the truth. He, Vicente, and her mother were once partners in crime, but Vicente betrayed them, took the money, and killed the woman they both loved. Meanwhile, the bald man survives, and, craving revenge, steals a car after knocking out its owner with one punch. Chris and Elisa rest for a moment, hearing music nearby. He tells her it was her mother's favorite song, and that the necklace she wears was once hers too. He reveals that her mother planned to leave Vicente, but never made it out alive. Back at the club, Vicente surveys the wreckage and realizes this is far from over. That night, Chris and Elisa find a truck to keep moving. When she finds a gun inside, Chris takes it away, saying they're heading to her Aunt Carolina's house. She doesn't believe him, defending the man who raised her, but Chris stays silent, focused only on keeping his promise to protect his daughter no matter what. Without warning, Elisa tricks Chris, steals the truck, and speeds off, leaving him stranded on the roadside. He tries to wave down a passing car, but it rushes by, driven by none other than El Corvo. Meanwhile, Elisa stops at a phone booth, desperate to call for help. But before she can finish dialing, the bald man appears out of nowhere like a shadow. Terrified, she runs, but he catches up easily. With a sinister calm, he hands her an apple and asks if she's ready to accept her gift. Disgusted, she spits in his face and sprints away again. Just as she spots Chris in the distance, the metal-armed brute appears, and the two men open fire. Gun aimed at Elisa. Chris drops his weapon and surrenders, trying to protect her. He's forced to lie face down while they tie his hands, and the metal-fisted man hits him across the head, demanding to know who he really is. Chris refuses to speak, until Elisa blurts out that he's her father. The brute freezes for a second, then knocks Chris out cold. By morning, Chris wakes hanging from a tree, a rope tight around his neck. Vincente, the gang boss and his old rival, stands before him, claiming Elisa as his own daughter because he raised her. After letting him hang dangerously long, Vincente cuts him down, only for his men to beat him senseless. During the ride, Vincente swears he didn't kill Elisa's mother, but refuses to give details. Chris, bruised and silent, listens as Vincente admits he took the woman from his best friend simply because he could. Moments later, the iron-fisted killer calls, revealing he's still alive, and exposes one of Vincente's own men as a traitor. Without hesitation, Vincente executes the snitch on the spot. Soon they arrive at an abandoned factory. Inside, the place is littered with bodies, the killer's handiwork. Then, the bald man appears again, gun raised, ready to finish what he started. Chris is dragged into a chamber where Elisa is tied to a conveyor machine. He shouts for them to stop as the villain hits a switch, sending her slowly toward a spinning grinder. El Corvo charges at the killer, while Vincente scrambles to save the girl. Chris joins the fight, his fury exploding as he trades blow after blow with the iron-fisted man. The villain laughs between punches, taunting him and claiming he was the one who murdered Elisa's mother. That's the last straw. Chris goes berserk, landing hit after hit until the man's glasses shatter. Across the room, Vincente spots a running saw, the same weapon meant for Elisa, and realizes the only way to end this nightmare might be to face his own sins once and for all. Chris crashes into the sand, gasping, but somehow finds the strength to keep going. The metal-armed villain calmly unhooks his prosthetic and finally delivers his tragic monologue. He reveals he was hired to kill Elisa's mother and make it look like an accident, but he went overboard, losing his arm in the process. Now, he's consumed with revenge against Vincente. Chris doesn't wait for the full rant to finish. He lunges, landing bone-crunching hits that knock the bald man to the ground. Seizing the moment, he rushes to save Elisa. Inside, Vincente is frozen above the spinning grinder, hesitant as he holds a saw, unsure if it's the only way to protect her. The fight erupts again, punches and kicks flying, until a burst from a gas pipe fills the room with smoke. The villain is blinded, and Chris finally gains the upper hand, yanking the metal arm off. But there's a hidden knife, and the bald man stabs Chris in the stomach. Bleeding but relentless, the killer climbs back and forces Vincente to admit the truth. He murdered Elisa's mother to keep her from leaving with the child. Shocked and horrified, Elisa listens as the pieces finally fall into place. The hitman explains how to stop the grinder, but the gears are spinning faster, dragging her closer. Thinking quickly, Vincente tells Elisa to throw her diamonds into the mechanism. The jewels jam the gears, snapping the chain just in time. El Corvo refuses to give up, lunging one last time to shove her in. Chris dives in, fighting him off, and in the chaos, Vincente grabs the saw, swinging it at the bald man. Both crash down out of sight, leaving only silence behind. Later, Chris and Elisa visit her mother's grave. For the first time, Elisa looks at him and calls him Dad. Back at the abandoned yard, the dust has settled. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below.